Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the Insta360 dive case for the X3. Now, for those of you that follow my channel, you already know how fond I am of the X3 as well as the 1-inch 360 edition. These are, in my opinion, two of the most unique, fun, and actually practical cameras to use, even though at face value they may not seem like it. Now, the beauty of the X3, and by the way, I'll include links in the description for all of these, the X3 is that unlike the 1-inch edition, it does have water resistance, it does have a single lens mode, so it's much more of an action camera. You don't only have to use it for 360, you can use it as a traditional action camera. So a lot of features. Insta software is great. $450 for this one, $799 for this one. Keep in mind, this one does not even have an official underwater enclosure on the market, and it's been out longer than the X3, but of course Insta knows that the far more popular camera is the X3 because the X3 is, well, literally just about half the price of the 1-inch edition. With that out of the way, let's get to the actual dive case. Now, you may have noticed no branding here from Insta, and that's because even though this looks exactly like the dive case manufactured by Insta, it is not, or at least I'm going to theorize it is, but it doesn't carry Insta's official branding. So the branding on this is Han Lin, and I will include a link in the description for those of you that are interested in picking one up. It was roughly $70 US, and if you're trying to figure out why I went with this one as opposed to the official dive case, it's simply because nothing else in there. The official dive case just isn't in stock or wasn't in stock at the time of this purchase. And the reality is that if you want to get the X3 into a pool, into the ocean, snorkeling, scuba diving, whatever it may be, just going swimming, then you're going to want this enclosure. Now, as I said, it does offer water resistance. Let me go ahead and move this away. But that water resistance is limited, and also never expose any electronics to salt water like the ocean. Do yourself a favor. So the first thing we get is a pouch, and this is part of the reason I already suspect that this is literally the same product, just not branded, because this is the same pouch that Insta packages with their dive case. And frankly, I have to say, if it is identical and I save $10, that's a win, because as much as I love Insta's cameras, the way that they, for lack of a better word, screw us when it comes to accessories is one of the things they need to fix besides customer service. So instructions, let's get that out of the way, and the actual pieces. So pull out the dive case, pull out the defogging strips. It's basically, it seems like everything that comes with the official, literally, your mount, quarter 20, all that good stuff. I don't think there's anything else in the box. Let me go ahead and check. Nope, that is it. So let's take a look at the actual underwater enclosure and things you should know about this, okay, that I already know, because I was very much on the fence about purchasing this. After all, I don't really know how much I'm going to get to use it. Hopefully I will. Scuba diving is out for me because of my injury, so that's going to be on the back burner until surgery, and recoup, of course. But hopefully, eventually, I will get back into the water. Anyone who's followed my channel knows I've been a scuba diver for, well, I don't know if it's like 20 years already. I love it. It's as close as you're going to get to going to space, no matter what Elon Musk tells you. So, no Insta branding here on the side, but to me, the case looks exactly the same as the one that Insta is selling, again, at a $10 premium. The rubber cover here, just like the rubber covers for the lens protection on both cameras, you're going to want to use this. And if you're wondering why, it's because you need to remember, as I try to slide this off as gracefully as possible, which it appears there is no graceful way to do it. This condom is really stuck on there. If the actual housing gets scratched where the lenses reside, which is protecting, it will inherently compromise 360 footage. So be aware of that. That is why you want to protect this surface, because if you have any sort of scratch, which it looks like there is a scuff on this out of the package, you believe that? And it does appear to be a scuff. I'll try using this. It's going to affect your footage, and this does have a scuff. So already, unfortunately, this gives you an idea of QC, and if you're not able to see it, I assure you it's there. And I'll see if I can clean it up, but it doesn't appear. It does seem like an actual scratch. I don't want to put my nail to it, but it's not rubbing off. I'll test it with something to try to clean it post on the video. But all of your controls are there. And basically, the other thing you need to know, besides keeping this safe and not getting it scratched, is that you absolutely, like with any underwater enclosure, want to use these little guys, which there's actually a slot in there, and that will prevent fogging, internal humidity. But remember, if you're in a very humid environment, it's always going to be a battle. But I believe, yeah, this is the slot right here. So it will just pocket in those strips, and you'll need to get more of those eventually. And then they have given us controls for all of the main buttons, including the side. Now, the other thing you need to know about this enclosure is you will be able to see it when it's in your footage. And what I mean by that is literally what I just said. It is not invisible, even though Insta360 markets basically the whole premise is that the camera will be invisible on their invisible selfie stick. This is not. So you're not going to see the whole camera, but you are going to get essentially, it seems like just what the stitch line can't hide, which is part of the case. So there's going to be what appears to be an acrylic thing in your image. But again, the concept is still the same, that if you're taking 360 video, whether you're scuba diving, snorkeling, or just swimming, the beauty is that you don't have to worry about framing, you don't have to worry about what you're capturing, because in post, you will be able to get to all of that. So I'm kind of even afraid to place this down on a table, very much like the cameras. And that's really the only downside to these Insta, I would say, dynamos, is that you must baby them oh so much. And if you opt to get one of their lens guards for this or the 1-inch, just remember it's going to be a bit of a compromise on the quality of your video. It's not going to be terrible, but it's going to lead to things like lens flare, things you just do not want to see. Another reason not to get this wet, in case any of you have forgotten, is that even though it has an IP rating, this battery is removable and inherently it will corrode. It's another reason, don't expose any electronics to salt. Even a saltwater pool, do yourself a favor, that's less corrosive, but still in the same family, so avoid it. Any chemicals, for the most part, other than just traditional fresh water, are going to be complicated. That's why underwater enclosures have always had a place in my travel bag. Granted, times have changed. So let's go ahead and pop this in. I believe, I'm not reading any instructions because I'm a genius, but I even feel like we need to be careful as we insert it, and maybe, I'm being too anal about that, but it does have movement. And yes, I didn't go ahead and put in the humidity strip because for what I'm doing here, we don't need it because I'm just installing it. I just wanted to show you. Now, one thing I forgot to do is you do need to enable the underwater enclosure setting, because the camera does need to handle the stitch lines differently. And look, this is giving me stress doing this again. Let's see if it's more seamless doing it this way. I just feel like the lenses are so close to getting hit, and you won't be able to use the lens covers, the protectors, excuse me, when using this, because they're just too large when they sit on the lens elements. So let's go ahead and power that on. I'll jump into settings, and that's the button right there that you want for the underwater enclosure. You see I hit that. It says stabilization and stitching effects. I'll hit that again so you can see it. And stitching effects for lens guards have been, is that the lens guard one? Excuse me. Lens guard has been disabled. That's the lens guard one. I meant to hit that one. Accidents happen. Dive case mode is enabled. So essentially now you're good to go. That was for the lens guards. I stand corrected as usual. So we're good to go. We're ready to use this. Now you want to pop it in. And I'm going to try doing it this way this time. I think it'll be a little bit less spicy for myself. So let's see. It's still spicy. This doesn't make me feel warm inside. Warm and fuzzy, not happening. So you go ahead and hook those on. Pretty straightforward, right? And sometimes. And then once you've got it in, go ahead and make sure the clasp locks. Also, always make sure the O-ring is clear of any debris. This applies to all underwater enclosures. And over time, you are going to want to lubricate that O-ring because it will dry up. It is rubber, and that is really all that is protecting you from water intrusion. Always also test these enclosures prior to actually using them with your camera. This one looks like I'm going to have to send it back just because of that damage to what I was already detailing cannot be damaged. So unfortunate, but still really compact. This is what I like about it. You can go ahead and mount this up. It's really a matter of how you want to use it, is what I would say. So if you want to use a traditional mount like this, a GoPro mount, and then get a floating handle, which Insta does make, you don't have to buy theirs. You can get a generic one there. I wouldn't worry. Obviously, that's an easy way to make sure at least this doesn't sink to the bottom of the ocean. That's why the floaty handles are smart with devices like this. Buoyancy, I don't expect to be a big problem with a lot of underwater enclosures from the past. Sea Frog's one of my favorite brands because they're affordable and they make quality products. You always do have to be slightly aware of buoyancy for those of you that are not familiar. But that's pretty much it in terms of what comes with this. And I'm excited to give it a shot, but again, it looks like we have to do an exchange. But this also gives you an idea of why this is incredibly overpriced. The fact that a third-party manufacturer can sell what essentially looks like it is the exact case for it and only be $10 less, well, it says a lot about pricing. So, and the fact that Insta just overprices these, even their GPS remote. I would own one of those right now if they were available. Some vendors have them in stock, but even on Amazon, we have authorized retailers selling them at a premium. They're selling them for like $100 and charging for shipping. So pretty messed up. Let's see how many they give you in total. So 6, not bad. But figure you're going to need to use 1 for every use. So, and that's not always the case, but general rule of thumb, you want to replace it. Also remember, if you're in a really humid climate, which I live in one, but I didn't used to back in New York, and also if you're staying, if you're traveling, let's say you're going somewhere with a beach, and it's very humid and you've been in the hotel room or your Airbnb, whatever it may be, maybe you even own a home, you're that fancy. The whole point is that when you come out of that air conditioning, you have to remember your camera is going to have to acclimate to the exterior climate. Even inside a case like this, there's a chance it will fog up a bit and dissipate over time. Also remember, this is inherent with all underwater enclosures and cameras in general, but especially cameras like this that have a fairly small sensor. Low light performance, not a strong suit. So the deeper you go with this, the worse it will be. And this is rated to 50 meters. So I'm not saying you can't use it that deep, but don't expect stunning results. You probably will fare better when we talk about just regular image quality with something like a latest and greatest GoPro, or even something like this guy, which is old by Insta's standards, but still incredibly competent and still my favorite action camera in my bag. But of course, there are newer products out there, even from Insta. You can go with the RS, the 1RS with the 1-inch edition. But to me, that's not worth an extra investment at this point, clearly. And you'll get a nice flat 4K image out of something like this. But again, underwater enclosures, I purchased one online, also a generic, that claimed to accommodate the extended or boosted battery base. And of course, China mislabeled it, and it was designed only for the 360, even though it's stated for the 1-inch edition. So I was excited about that, but once that couldn't happen, I want something that's going to give me, I really did want to do 360, but it was a matter of like, if I go deeper, scuba diving down the road, this is going to probably serve me better, but down the road is down the road, and I'll worry about an enclosure then. And also, I want to point out, if there was a suitable underwater enclosure for this camera, I wouldn't even be entertaining this, because this is going to do much better in low light and deeper in the water. As you go deeper and you get away from that sun hitting the water and lighting gets worse and worse, that's where this would perform better. But we need an underwater enclosure. And yes, there are some out there from third-party manufacturers, but I'm not, the ones from China, I don't see being a great option. And most people that have purchased them have basically talked about how they don't respect the stitch line. And that's the critical thing about getting something from Insta, and this being the exact same design as Insta's, if not the exact same product, is that this is as good as you're going to possibly do with that stitch line taken into account. And remember, you still have access to the buttons, which is critical. To not have that obviously would make this thing totally worthless. But the power button, let's just test it right now, should bring the screen on for me. And it did. And, well, I heard it. A little bit slow. And the other nice thing is that with this, as opposed to the 1-inch edition, we do have a much larger display. Now, on camera, that's not going to be incredibly clear, but you can still see that it is viewable. In person, it fares better. There's distortion here on the plastic because of the curvature. Food for thought for Insta next time around. But again, I haven't been blown away by Insta's accessories overall, and that's why, to pick up something like this, if this would have been half the price, I would have been happier with it, because while your base price is $450, once you start getting all the components, an extra battery, maybe you purchase the more premium, because they don't include this, another, kind of screwed up thing I think that Insta's got to get out of the habit of doing. This lens cap is an accessory you have to purchase that should be included, that gives a cutout so that if you're using something like a mic mount, their incredibly expensive mic bracket for this, it will accommodate it. But, if you want to buy, so this I purchased, and then I also purchased the small rig cage for it, which is fine. It does the job, but it should have been designed a little bit better because you can't actually take out the battery while it's installed. There are other things I could talk about. I'm not saying this is terrible. For when I got it right ahead of my honeymoon, I should say our honeymoon, right? She watches all the videos. And it's the right thing to do anyway. It was ours. But when I got it, this was the only option. So I took it. Not much I could do about the fact, but this is another thing I've mentioned before where Insta needs to do a better job with accessories. They're becoming much more well-known. They're making products that, even though I have no relationship with them, and that may change down the road, I'm going to continue to cover their products because I'm all about game changers, innovation, and that's what they're doing. They're changing the photography and digital imaging business, and I won't be surprised when major manufacturers come back to the 360 market to compete with these products. We haven't seen that yet, but I will not be surprised when it starts to happen. And don't be shocked when phone manufacturers try to figure out a way to make this part of their camera BS, because we know every single launch is more camera bullshit. And I'm not against that, but gimmicks are gimmicks. This isn't a gimmick. It was a gimmick years ago. Now it's tangible, and in my opinion, the best camera to take with you if you're only going to take one and you don't own anything that's interchangeable lens. This is going to give you an experience and memories that you're just not going to get out of even your smartphone. I think it's really the combination of those two coming together. But it pretty much covers it. I'll let you know how this works out. I may end up having to get the official one, even though I'm against that. But I will keep all of you posted. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.